Hi, my name is Paul Marco. Welcome to another episode of Crime Fighters Forum, Techno-Crime Fighters Forum. Today we have the regular analysts with us. Most of them have shown up. We have Dr. Millicent Black. We have Romola D. Katherine Horton hasn't come online yet. And we have Karen Milton Stewart. In addition today, welcome Lydia Whitecap and Melanie Richen.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. I go around and talk. The two newbies, Lydia and Melanie, before you start talking, introduce yourself, give about a sentence introduction, and then you can just chime in. Today's topic is going to be court corruption, and they call it the criminal justice system. And I think after this discussion, you'll realize why they call it the criminal justice system. So how should we start this? I know Katherine got involved and she got on the list because of a court case. Who would like to start talking about the court, the criminal justice system? Who's had some experience?
Well, I had a recent experience because, in fact, since I'm a victim, I think it started 6 years ago. One day I wanted to go and get my son from daycare, and he had disappeared. And I asked, well, where he was, and I found out that his father had taken him without me knowing. And he sent me a text message saying, well, you know, I've taken him and I will, you know, go somewhere with him. I'm not going to tell you where. And but I've sent you the lawyer to obtain custody of our son, because you've obviously gotten crazy because you have, you know, said that you had been non-consensually implanted with nanotechnology, that you were a non-consensual experimentee and all this kind of things, and that you were attacked by directed energy weapons. This is so totally crazy. So I have written down our text exchanges, and I went to the police, and I'm requesting full custody. And so I was obviously quite shocked, and indeed, for sure, when I came home, I had a judicial officer in front of my house saying, well, you know, you better let your lawyer know, because your ex partner is requesting full custody. And I didn't even have a lawyer then. I had never any problems with the justice system before, or I had never needed a lawyer. And so I had about 2 days to get a lawyer, and the first hearing was then on the Monday afterwards. So I was really didn't have very much time to prepare my defense. And indeed, they then appointed a psychologist, psychological expert, who was supposed to make an expertise. She interviewed us all, also him, and also our child, who was 2 years old at the time. And her conclusion was that he was totally right, that I was obviously delusional. But I mean, I had already reports of a toxologist at that time that had taken skin samples from my skin, which had shown a material that was not biological, that could not be identified. I had measurements in a Faraday cage that proved that my body is emitting radio frequencies and all this. I told her that, and I told her what happened to me, and she didn't want to hear anything after this. She just didn't look at all at this proof, of this evidence, you know, which I know now we're working with various physicists, and he's told me that this was absolute scientific evidence that I was implanted. So you know, there's no doubt about it. So she said, well, she just didn't look at this at all. And she wrote a diagnosis that I'm suffering from paranoia, that I have delusions, and that my ex-partner was totally right to take the son. And the court ruled that the custody from me was going to suddenly, from one day to another, totally to him. And that I should only be allowed to see my son, I think 1 hour a week in a supervised facility. So my son was very distraught by this. I had the daycare nurses coming knock on my door, saying that they couldn't recognize the child, that he was always smiling and always the sunshine. And then he was suddenly like always crying. He didn't want to sleep anymore. He didn't want to eat anymore. He was like just crying, mommy, mommy, mommy. And the court order was such that if I had only approached the daycare, because I was considered dangerous and delusional or whatever, then I would have basically broken the law and exposed myself to legal pursuit. So I couldn't even go and comfort my child. And that has gone on. And I had a letter of a psychiatrist that had also that I had met, who said that I was not delusional, that I had that I was totally competent in raising my child by myself, that I was a very good mother, and there was no problem here. And the same of another psychologist who said the total opposite than the court psychologist, who said that I was a very good mother, that there was no threat or no danger to my son, and there was no reason to remove the custody. And this all was swept under the carpet. It was not even, I mean, it wasn't considered. And only the opinion of this court-appointed psychologist was taken into account. And she basically, all the evidence that I had, scientific evidence, she just didn't want to look at it. She just didn't talk about this at all. And this has been going on. It has started in 2011. Since then, I've filed an appeal. This was even worse. And now I went to court again just recently. And I've just gotten the court order. And it stipulates that I've asked for shared custody. And actually before all this happened, before this court psychologist intervened, we actually asked for shared custody. And now the new court order is, and this is very bad, that for my son also, because he's already in a loyalty conflict, so it's really not advisable to do that. That although, I mean, I have written testimonies of neighbors of the illegal entries into my home, who saw two men coming out of my house and who actually told her that I was going to be quickly gone, that my apartment was going to be sold. Only problem is I've never put up my apartment for sale. And that there were real estate agents, and that this apartment was very interesting for them, and the whole building here was very interesting for them, and that she should call them if she knew of other apartments in this area for sale. And so these were, and there were various, my car has been vandalized countless times, and there are actually, it's police officers who said, well, for example, the door has obviously been broken and forcibly opened. All these are not my sayings, these are, you know, police reports. So they all had this, and still they decided not to look at this at all, not to take the testimonies of my neighbors into account, not to take the police records into account, and just decided that because this court psychologist said I was delusional, the new court order confirms that I'm delusional, although I had a written certificate of a psychiatrist and another psychologist saying totally opposite. And then on top of it, it says that the new report I brought from a psychologist, saying again that I was not delusional and that I was a good mother, they couldn't take it into account for legal reasons, because she was just a psychologist, she was not a psychiatrist. Well, the court psychologist is also only a psychologist, she's not a psychiatrist, so she can normally not diagnose mental illness. And the new court order now stipulates that I should only see my son either on Sundays or Saturdays for 2.5 hours in presence of the father. So this is really the worst which could happen for my son, because when you've got already parents that are in conflict, you know, it's not a good idea to actually well that he sees us. It's very important that I spend time alone with my son, you know, and every time, well, his father asks him then to leave, and he wants to leave. He says, well, no, I never can see why can I never see my mommy? I would like to stay, go and do your shopping and come and pick me up here. And he never wants that. So the impression for my son is that I'm coming with my father to my mother, and my father has to be there to watch mommy, so to speak, because the judge and the court has decided that was my mommy was crazy. So this was, and also my ex-partner often did not respect the court order. So even if he had to come and bring me my son, I went regularly to police because he just didn't show up, and there was never taken any action against him. So this was totally swept under the carpet. Basically, he can do whatever he likes. My report of a psychiatrist was not taken into account, and only the court psychologist report counts. And when I bring another report from a psychologist, that doesn't count on the basis that she is only a psychologist. But the court expert is also only a psychologist. See? So that doesn't fly. I mean, so I mean, I've been through so much corruption with this court case and with this custody case, and yeah. And actually the evidence that showed that it cannot be a delusion, like for example, I have a throat operation because I have implants here, and that also it's a technology. I have the an expert testimony with all the patent and where it's fabricated, and it's basically also contains a throat microphone which will register everything I say, but also everything I think. So vocalized but non-vocalized speech. And I had an operation. So we took an unidentified black object the doctor took out of my throat. And also there was a physiotherapist who was supposed to come to massage the scar. And she made a testimony saying every time I massaged Madame's scar, there were some black, like shiny pieces, plastic pieces that seemed to be coming out of the scar. So they had this testimony as well. So it should be entirely clear by all of the evidence I gave them that it cannot be a delusion. But still, they decided to not take this into account at all and only go with the opinion of this court-appointed psychologist who said that I was delusional and that I cannot have my son. So I'm up for another appeal now. Yeah, so that's what I have to say about court corruption.
And this was in Belgium, Melanie?
Yeah, in Brussels, yeah. At the family court in Brussels, yeah.
Actually, hello everyone. Sorry to be late. I've just got one question. I missed the very first bit. Melanie, have you also explained because this is, I think, also a recurring theme we should be aware of. You mentioned that you had previously a judge who acted extremely corruptly, but then other people accused this judge of being involved in pedophilia or something like that?
Yeah, it was certainly not very reassuring when I found on the internet that this judge, the first judge we had, was accused by a surgeon who apparently risked his whole career, upon exposing this, and he was then, of course, fired, and he was even, committed to psychiatry. He accused this judge. I mean, I don't know if it's true, but that's I found a whole file on the internet saying that she was a member of a pedophile ring, and that her role in this ring, and he said that several of his doctor colleagues at the clinic he was working, university clinic he was working, were also members of this ring. According to him, he said that her role in this particular role in this ring was to separate very quickly the children from their parents, so to deliver them to their the pedophiles. And what I can only say in my case is that it is true that this whole when this whole affair started, and one day I found that my son was missing from daycare. It was certainly true that she tried to separate me very, very quickly from my son. That was the first thing she said. It was right at the beginning. Oh, well, she should only be able to see her son in a supervised facility. That was definitely very quick. And that she also, how to say, she forbid me to approach daycare. Even though I was, you know, as I don't know if you heard it, the nurses came to knock, you know, to ring on my doorbell saying, we don't register your son, we don't recognize, sorry, your son. He's totally distraught. He's not sleeping, he's not eating, he's only crying. And so they recognized that as soon as I couldn't see my son anymore, he totally changed his behavior. You know? So, and they were very worried. So she decided that I should not be able to approach daycare anymore and get my son like I had done every day from daycare. And I should only be able to see him in a supervised facility for 1 hour, 1 to 2 hours. That was the first judgment. And when I filed an appeal, it was even worse. It was reduced from 1 to 2 hours to 1 hour so that I should only see him in a supervised facility. So what I can say is that she very quickly looked to separate me from my son.
I think this is so important to actually, you know, add into the story, because one of the things I want everybody, you know, the investigation team, but also everybody who's listening on the internet to understand, is that we are dealing with one system here. It is one control system. It is one system of corruption. And all these tentacles are related. So as soon as we see one child being abused, we know, okay, pedophile ring, corrupt judges, corrupt police officers, social services, doctors. There has to be a cluster. And really, I want to collect these cases so that now every single time either we see intelligence agency offenses, or we see pedophilia, or any sort of remote neural monitoring, or, you know, people ending up with Morgellons or self-replicating, you know, synthetic stuff in their bodies, immediately we think, okay, where are the pedophiles? It's really that simple, because this is how this entire system has been set up. The entire system cohesion, it seems to be the case, is based on pedophilia and also sexual sadism towards women. And, you know, I think this is how the entire system hangs together, that, you know, the business plan here is to test weapons and weird Nazi, you know, particles and brain control bullshit for the pharma industry, for equal Nazis in the pharma industry and the weapons industry. That's how they make money. But how they make people do all this nonsense is by hooking them on pedophilia, and hooking them on sexual practices that are criminal, using that as a control file. But through that, they established, you know, an entire system whereby these children are used almost like fodder for this insane machinery. And I think this is what we're seeing. And, you know, when Melanie first told me about this case, I was blown away. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, well, what we are seeing are the tentacles of this horrific system. And we also have to remember that, you know, Melanie is in Brussels. Now, Brussels and Belgium was like the pedophile capital. You know, I mean, officially, unofficially, I think every single large city is a pedophile capital, because this is a global system. But we remember the Dutroux affair, where police officers and witnesses were dying. You know, this is how the entire system hangs together. And this is why I think, you know, I don't know about you guys. I mean, we are all being attacked, all of us women. But the one thing that makes me keep going is that every time I'm being shot at, I think, okay, I'm going to take this bullet and I'm going to fight back, because behind every single one of these things, there's an entire, you know, there are crowds of children being abused by the same degenerate psychopathic nutters and in the intelligence agencies. you know?
That's certainly also my motivation. I just, because I think Paul has another guest he wants to introduce, I just want to add to this. I don't know if everybody knows, in the meantime, I've founded a human rights organization for the defense of the victims of non-consensual implantation and directed energy weapons, radiation experiments. And so we're doing scientific testing to actually provide the victims with proof of the crimes that have been committed against them. And in this new judgment that I just received last week, and again, this weekend, there was a problem because my ex-partner didn't show up with my son. So we just have a new judgment, which with what I don't agree, but anyway, again, he has not respected it. But what I wanted to say is, what I was really very angry about is that, well, it's again based on this only opinion of this court psychologist that she said that I was delusional. So the judge writes, well, this hasn't changed. Also, we cannot accept the report of the other psychologist because she's only a psychologist. So that's the first thing, which is absolutely not logical, and I think pretty easy to attack as an argument. But then she said, but we now know that her condition has gotten even worse because with some others that think alike, she has found it, in the meantime, she has found it, and it's an official act. I mean, we registered at the Tribunal of Commerce in Brussels. I wrote the bylaws and everything. So she has now founded a human rights organization called the International Coalition Against Electronic Torture and Robotization of Living Beings, ICATOR. And so we have the proof that her condition has even worsened because of the fact that she has founded this human rights organization that regroups people that think as she does, that they are non-consensually implanted, experimented on with directed energy weapons, and that their houses and cars are illegally entered and vandalized. So this is even more proof to not give her the custody back of her child, because she has now, unfortunately, regrouped herself, or let's say associated herself with people that also suffer from this kind of delusions. So when I told the other ICATOR board members about this, not all of them know, but the ones I told, they immediately said, okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to file a complaint as ICATOR, as the association against this court order. Because now it's not only against you, it's not only concerning you as a person, it's also concerning the whole association, basically.
I actually think I love this judgment, because this woman made a preliminary judgment where she put in writing that everybody who's part of this human rights organization, and by the way, I'm a part of it as well, I'm a member as well, that the members are delusional. Now that is actually libel. I love it. She actually put it in writing. I mean, this is like, a judge waiting to have her career obliterated, I mean, we can more than oblige, gladly, because this, what she's got coming now is I think we should just have, really get her for libel. Because this woman is neither a weapons expert, nor has she looked into this. She is calling, people, I'm a high energy physicist. She's calling me delusional because we're going on about weapons technology that we not just know exists and have the patents for, but we also know where the arms manufacturers are and who's manufacturing this stuff. I mean, I think the woman is just, I think she's just waiting for blowback, I think she just wanted to have some encouragement, she wanted to have the door kicked down. Well, she can have that, I think.
Yeah, anyway, that's what I have to say regarding court corruption at the moment. We're right in it, yeah.
Very good story. How did this, Melanie, just for my clarification, you were married and then the divorce started after your child was born?
We were not married, but it was a partner for a long time. And actually, the problem started when, when I was attacked, and I was telling him, I saw so many doctors, and there's also this material coming out of my skin, but either they told me, well, either they took it for a parasite, so some kind of parasite, and I went to the Tropical Institute in Antwerp, and I made some tests and said, well, it's obviously nothing biological, so it's not a parasite. Or they said to me, well, well, this coming out of your skin, well, it's just some dust coming out of your skin, so just ignore it. So, or there were a few that called me delusional, but most of them they couldn't, because I mean this material was visible; it came out of my skin. So, yeah. So I went to so many doctors, nobody could help me, nobody could tell me what I have, and we were texting with my ex-partner, and I told him my despair. I told him that I was really desperate, that I was on top of it getting tortured, that I didn't know what was going on with me. And that I was really, really desperate. And what I didn't know is that, but it was a conversation, you see. He asked me, how are you feeling? I told him, I have seen another doctor who can't help me. I'm really desperate. So it was not a one way, you know, it's not as if I had sent him these SMSs like all the time. It was responding to his questions. So what he did, he just wrote down my answers, basically. And went to the police with it and said, well, you see, my ex she's, and I had full custody of my child at the moment, because when I was pregnant, he asked me to get an abortion. He didn't want another child. And I was totally alone with him. He didn't come to the birth. He didn't come to the, to the maternity ward when my son was born. And at the last moment, the last day where it was possible, he decided that he wanted to recognize the child. So it was not, so I had been totally alone with him for the first year of his life. And what he did then, when the harassment, or let's say the torture, because it is really torture, started, and no doctor could help me, when I told him honestly my despair, he just took my answers to his questions and typed them out and went to the police with it and said, you see, my ex she's gone crazy, she's delusional, she's this. I need to have the custody of my son, because our son is not safe with this delusional mother anymore. And he very quickly got that. So, so much for corrupt court systems, yeah.
I think what really has to happen, because, sorry, forgive me, Paul, sorry.
No, we have to do a whole thing on psychiatry and psychology, because that's just a scam and a racket right there. And I'd love to have somebody like John Rappaport come in and talk about that, because he's been exposing that fraud for a long time. So they're using that fraud to take people's children, put them into the baby market, and fuel the whole system. We have Lydia's going through an interesting situation with her children right now. You care to talk about that, Lydia?
Yeah, I could. Hi, I'm Lydia. Everybody, nice to meet you guys.
Hi, Lydia. Hi.
The first thing I really want to say is it was recently, about 2 weeks ago, and I spent last night really trying to find it, a credible source, and I will find it. I'm assuming, I mean, I'm already aware that the European Union is obviously under the same model that the US is. We may have a few cosmetic differences legally, but what I'm trying to find the source, and I only listen to credible people anymore. It was the statement that the FBI here, so whatever the counterpart working in the EU is, screens all judges, screens them. Any honest judges, anyone, there's, you know, RAND testing and whatnot, psychological profiles, etc. You know, interviews, face-to-face interviews. Anyone judge in any level of our court system that exhibits any propensity for honesty is therefore scratched out. So is expelled from the process. So in other words, the only judges that the FBI will allow, there's a secret screening process going on to take office, be seated, are already corrupt. So with that said, the next thing I want to share is I saw a documentary 3 years ago with Sean Stone. I don't know if you guys know about his work, and I don't follow him a lot because I think he's really compromised, and I know his father is, but I also see that he's allowed to do certain things. And there was a documentary. With all that said, there are moments worth watching of Sean Stone. That's my personal opinion. The rest of it is, disinfo, derailing, garbage. But when he can, and I see that he has integrity and he really wants to do what he can for the truth. But that, he's obviously on a very short leash. There was an interview about 3 years ago, and I'll go get the link for it, of a CPS worker in California. I think this is really important for you guys to hear. It was an hour. Of course, I was glued to it. She blew the whistle. She's gave the expose we all need to hear about the CPS in America. And she broke down. I mean, it wasn't just she was a CPS worker. There's been other exposés since of a more minor sort. I could dig for them too. But she is here to tell us how much every policeman makes on any stolen child, how much the judge makes, how much the other members of the court system under the judge, her, staff and et cetera, make per child. And it depends, but it's between $1 and $10 million they each make per child. In America today, in every city, in every county across this country today, and has been. I mean, that's not important to say, when this became at this level up and running. I don't think that's the point. I think what the point is right now. And I'm so sorry to hear about your story. I'm trying to fight back tears because I went through a personal story. I don't know if you guys want me to share what happened to me. But should I go ahead?
Yes. Go ahead.
In this attempt to, when it wasn't some covert attempt to sneak in the house and grab them. So this was 2005 in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And this was the situation. I had a property in a rural road, just like here. And I've been rural ever since 1998. So in Santa Fe, we were rural, down system of dirt roads. And I say that because I think certain things happen to me that don't happen to people in urban settings. I think that's another important thing to talk about. Anyway, my husband went missing, which he began when we arrived in Santa Fe to go missing. Long story short, and he would just go missing on a regular basis. And he usually was found within 24 hours. By 2005, when he went missing for 3 weeks. We had what we thought were our friends, my daughter, his brother, who just died in September, that was very close to us because he'd married a Navajo woman and they lived in Yatahe, which is, for anyone that needs to know the geography, just west of Santa Fe, about 6 hours on the Navajo reservation. He'd married a Navajo woman. So Chip and Verla, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, came over 3 weekends. We had the whole town looking for Royce. Royce was just vanished. This had never happened before. But he
Royce, for those who don't know, Royce is her husband. And
Royce is her husband.
yeah, he's not slipping off. He's probably being abducted. Right, Lydia?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't want to, I think something else was going on with his disappearances, and we know that he's implanted. And I think at that point it was messaging, because when we arrived in Santa Fe, the voices in his head, and now he was having visuals. And the crazy part about our story is that we entered into a demonic realm from hell. So it was hard to tell if these were demonic episodes of haunting, because they were happening 24/7, or the chip. And that's still the problem with my youngest son today. But I'm getting better at discerning which is which. Back then I wasn't. And what I believe was happening the day we arrived in Santa Fe in 2001 is that chip went active saying, bolt, leave. And he's so strong, he would fight it and get back the next morning. He'd call me, you know, from somewhere in Santa Fe, I'm here, come get me. So I, you know, until this event in 2005. Now at this point, the war is on to kill us, the whole family, what's left of us. By 2005, there were no more games. I mean, it wasn't as though the first 4 years were at all possible to survive, but this got to a level by 2005 that, you know, that it's clear to me they had decided, you know, end game time. Out they go. Done. The whole 5 of them, done. So this is what happens. 3 weeks of searching. We had everybody looking for him. He's very distinctive looking, so it was easy. And then lots of people knew him wherever he went in white America, because he stuck out, because he's so kind-hearted and wonderful. And anyway, in those days, he wore a red beret with a braid, long black hair, and you can't miss the guy. He's full blood. Everybody, you know, so we even had friendly police looking for him. Long story short, at the end of 3 weeks, there is a driveway adjacent to our property. We had 5 acres, and it went on the south side and wrapped around the back of our property. The majority of the land was in the back, and behind our land was a man that owned that property, who had several buildings. Right behind our house, and there was a deck on the back of our house, was a tower, which is common in Santa Fe style, you know, architecture. We called it the tower. At this point, I had terminal illness to the point where there wasn't a lot of hope. It was acute diabetes. We didn't know it was leukemia yet, and I had sprung free some stolen money from a will left to me, stolen by my sister and mother, and I'd finally gotten that for the 3 of the. It was really left to my children, but my sister was trustee. Not to go too off target here, but if you can understand the complexities of how I'm getting hit. I had been hiring women for a few months, because now I was bedridden. I couldn't walk. I was really, this is terminal illness. You know, it's Epstein-Barr, it's leukemia. The 3 collateral diseases are leukemia, T-cell lymphoma, fatal, and diabetes and heart disease. So I'm really, really ill at that point. I get some money from that will that I finally got. I have to steal my own wills. This isn't the first or the last. There's been quite a few. I do get them back. It's amazing. But I I hire a woman a month before this happens. I put an ad in the paper for, need nanny assistance in the Santa Fe New Mexican. New Mexican is the big newspaper in New Mexico, and with its own Santa Fe bureau. And the woman answers right away. She's an illegal alien, and she's a Jehovah's Witness, and she's very, very charming and very exuberant, and great worker. For the first few weeks, gains our trust, and again, she's illegal, and I didn't know that at this time. So after this 3-week hunt for my husband, who she'd gotten to know because she was working for helping us, because he was never had a driver's license because he has an eye missing, because that was shot out during his youth in Pine Ridge. So I can't rely on him to drive, even though he's an excellent driver and he drove plenty in America. Who cares? But at that point, I can't rely on him to drive. And so what happened was she had gotten to know him, and well, the day she answers the ad, she said, she called me and said, what's your address? And I gave her the address, and she said, mine is, and it's the next numbered, same little back row road. There's a million little back row roads, millions in Santa Fe, but she's the next driveway. She's the tower. She lives in the tower behind our house. So, me being me, still kind of foolish and naive. Oh, wow. What do you know? Come on up. Because you can walk. So she came running up, and that's how I met her. And so by the third Friday of him being missing, I called the police. I hadn't seen her in 3 weeks. I'd already fired her because she'd already stolen $6,000. That was my son's inheritance. So I'd already fired her, and I told her, I called the police and I said, look, I've tried. I explained to them how long he'd been missing. I'm frantic, etc. And they said, we'll send out a team. They sent out a 50-man team. They arrived, and parked all their cars out in the rural road. Decent men. A manhunt for my husband starting about noon. And the manhunt went, the direction of behind my house, because that's where there's an open national park behind the house, and, arroyo systems which are like human path systems. That's the obvious direction they're going to go first. A 50-man team went out on a police hunt, a manhunt for my husband. 5 hours later, they come back. And they were really appropriate and nice, especially a few of them, because I was sobbing, and they couldn't find him. And this had been the result, important detail, that my youngest son had spotted him in the driveway next door. That's why I called them. I said, he's back there somewhere. That's an important detail I just forgot. I haven't told any of these stories to anybody ever. So forgive me if I'm not polished. So that's the important point. My youngest son had spotted him in that driveway. Mom, it was Dad. And he was foaming at the mouth. So that's when I call the police for the manhunt. They do their 5 hours. I was out there barefoot with a cactus in my nightgown in the heat. 120, it was summer, really hot, New Mexico. My feet were destroyed by cactus, running down the arroyos, screaming, Royce, behind the police, looking everywhere, going back and forth past the tower. So the police leave. They said, we're so sorry. We'll, be in touch tomorrow. We'll see what we can do. And a half an hour goes by, and I'm sitting there's a certain chair in the living room where back in the old days, where the portaphone is, where and there's only one such chair and I'm about to describe what happened. So the next thing I know, they've been gone about half an hour. I hear my boys. Now they're about 7 and 9 at this point. Mom, he's coming at Letitia's door. Letitia was the nanny. That's the tower. They're kissing. They're making out. And I'm kind of, oh my God. And he's heading up the driveway to come on. I think he's coming back. And I'm going, I'm so in shock. I don't know what to do. 3 weeks he's been in that tower right there behind the house. And the man that owns the property, that's another story. So that whole property network, because he was obviously part of this. So the front door opens, there he is. And this was not my husband. It was like we had this long front hall. This is an old antique adobe house, long front hall from the door. I opened the door, to grab him and hug him. And the swinging started there. This was not my husband. It was like a freight train. And I mean, that man shoved me like a force I've never, down the hall, then once into the open living room system. And my boys were hiding, under there's a second floor down with an open landing where I could just see their eyes in slow motion, and proceeded to try to beat me to death. So he beat me. It must have lasted half an hour. I've never been, this wasn't my husband. So whatever she did, whatever they did, whatever psychiatrist they had going in there in the middle of the night, all those 3 weeks, this was not my husband. He almost beat me to death. I don't know why I didn't die. This is a strong man that's lifted weights for 20 years. Nobody can come near him. And he's so strong. So he's, picking me up and throwing me against the hard Sausalito tile for, about 7 times, 2 steps down. Then he grabs me by the hair and just starts pounding my head. That went on like 30 times. And I thought my head's going to explode, because it's like, the thought I kept having was, it's like a watermelon getting smashed. It's gonna, and there was more. Anyway, I get back to the chair, that armchair, and I'm really calm. He fled because my oldest son had said, I just called 911. Royce at that point vanished so fast. I can't, express how he was just gone, gone. And so I sit in the chair and I'm, I don't know what I am, because I have diabetes. I have acute diabetes. I'm just beginning to treat it. It gotten diagnosed. And the doctors were all telling me I had less than 2 years to live. And never believed those doctors. So my son said I had taught them respect the police all their lives. Be good, be a proper, have good manners, so my oldest son, whose name is Dante now, is the most wonderful human being. They both are. And did what I, had once told him, call 911 if you need help. So he called 911. 7 policemen enter without even knocking. This is about 10 minutes after Royce has left. I think they were already there. And they surprised me. He hadn't just told me he called 911. The door opens and 7 policemen walk in. They sit in a semicircle in front of me in that armchair. It was a leather armchair. And I'm just sitting calmly. And they're kneeling. And they look at me and say, we've got an ambulance on the way. And I knew my rights. And I said, I'm really grateful that you called an ambulance, and I know that I don't need an ambulance. I know my rights. I know that I can, thank you so much. And he, for calling anyway. And I had gathered up a massive amount of my hair and put it next to the phone in the 30 seconds before they got there. I was cleaning it up. That's what I do as a mother. The hair was all over. So they saw the hair and this massive ball of hair that had come out of my head. And it didn't get nasty till about 5 more seconds. There was a guy in the middle, and the guy in the middle puts his nose into my nose. He gets up and leans toward me and puts his nose on my nose. And this guy was nasty. He was the scariest man I've ever known in my life. And he said, you are crazy. You are psychotic. You are, and he started swearing at me. And he said, you will stand up now. So I stand up. They turn me around. They handcuff me. And I'm saying, I have a right to a glass of water because of my disease. I'm diabetic. I have to get a drink. I've just gone through a traumatic event. No, I need my purse. No, my purse. No, I know I'll need a sweater in ER because, no, I need a cigarette. No. Okay, so now it's about the boys. Those boys will be in with the ambulance with me, correct? Yes, they will be in the ambulance with you. And they're starting to walk me out to the ambulance, handcuffed. And I said, where are they? Where are my boys? Where am I? That was all that dominated before the cigarette, sweater, purse. They had sworn those boys would be in the ambulance. No boys. So I'm put on a gurney and I'm strapped in and I'm handcuffed, which was pretty, I'd just been almost beaten to death, and I'm staying really calm. And I said under my breath, I said something under my breath. I said, oh my God, my voice. That got him. He said, all right, I've had it. That does it. That does it. This man, this policeman. And he puts his nose back into my nose. I mean, touching it. And he goes, if you say one more word, you will never see your boys again as long as you live. He starts screaming, do I make myself clear? His nose is on my nose. I didn't even answer, say yes, sir. So then he goes, and I hear him, because he's right there, calling a 30-man guard task force, police task force. He's calling the task force for the violent woman, Mrs. Lydia Whitecalf, who's threatening, social peace in Santa Fe. She's a danger to the public, need task force, blah, blah, blah. I arrived, there's a 30-man task force. There's engines everywhere. There's sirens. It's a 30-man task force outside the hospital in their right gear for the danger that's coming in, Mrs. Whitecalf. No sign of my boys. They put me in the criminal cell that I'd been in that emergency room with my overdosing husband for the previous 5 years. And I looked over in that corner with horror as they'd leave murderers in and out, there'd always be 2 or 3 policemen on guard. There was a slit in the window. And at that point, I couldn't even look at that corner when I was there with my husband. I'm going into that room now. So they put me into the padded cell. It's a padded cell, and I'm still handcuffed. And there's now 3 officers outside to guard me, fully armed and equipped. And this is about by now 7 at night. The doctor didn't come in till the 3 in the morning, and they made me wait and cleared me instantly. Because I'm like you guys. I'm a professional. I'm a career woman. I was trained in, transpersonal psychology, even though I was denied my degree. So I've had 2 careers. And so I told them, the doctor, I'm fine. I'm fine. I hid all the bruises and the contusions and the bumps and really, I did. I'm fine. I know, and whatever conversation, he cleared me instantly. He said, you do have to see this. The resident psychiatrist or psychologist, she'll be in. She came in, same thing, cleared me instantly. They still wouldn't let me go. They had taken my boys to social services, and they'd given me a case officer, and I was to be there at 8 in the morning. So they didn't give me time. They were hoping to get home, shower, dress appropriately, because for things like this, I put on my pearls and I put on my professional clothes, beautiful clothing, and they attempted to have me raped when I was they finally released me. I'm on my way home. I had to get a cab and pay for it to get back to the house. It's now 5:30 in the morning. There's a message on my machine already from social services. You have to be here by 8 to meet with us about your sons. And there's where a known federal agent who's Indian, we called him Fred the Fed, is trying to get in the front door to rape me. Anything but let me get there at 8 in the morning. So I don't worry, guys. I got him the heck off my property, threatened to sue, threatened to, I think like an attorney's, I think. So that's why, that's one part of what helps me. I got rid of that guy. It was unbelievable. Got in the shower, and that's when I, really got strong. That's the day, that's it right there where I really got strong. And I got myself together. I put those pearls on. I look perfume, lipstick, makeup. I marched down to that social by 8, didn't know where it was, always lost in Santa Fe, got there, 8 o'clock, met the case officer at the door. There's skinheads in there, seeing they're taking away children. I never, I'm putting in the category with, I had to walk past them. They creeped me out. There was this one mother with tattoos and piercings, seeing her little child. I had to walk, oh, Jesus. And so the case officer has a manager who's more close to my age. Case officer's 20, very young. And they lead me right to a room that's, mirrored with a big conference table. And they said, before I opened my mouth, you have 20 minutes. And I'm going to tell you, your boys are about 4 rooms over in custody. The door is open to the back parking lot. In the back parking lot, there is an unmarked black car. Its door is open. You have 20 minutes. You have 20 minutes. And if we find that you do not prove to us that you are worthy of being a mother, capable of being a mother, because we have the police report. And you don't yet, so you don't know what you're being charged with. They will be transferred from the room to the car, and you will never see them again as long as you live. So I had 20 minutes. I threw down. They went, okay, we're giving your sons back. I threw down. I threw down in 20 minutes. And I think I throw down with truth and with love. And I looked at them with truth and love in my heart. And I said, I'm from a well-to-do family on the East Coast. First. Second, I own a $500,000 house. It's immaculate. I'm the best mother on this planet. Not that we all aren't. Not that I had to pull out that card. I never have to want to use that card, what my family is. I'm forced to in situations like these. So I have to pull out what kind of family I come from. What my careers are, that, I'll be happy to talk about. I don't want to have to depend on, the family background card, but I threw down. They gave me them back right away. It's surprising, but that's where 5 systems come in, because we'd just gotten into the rape crisis system because of what happened to both of them. And now we're in the domestic violence system. We'd been expelled from their school about a month earlier because their teachers were presenting, this is a Waldorf school, satanic there was some satanic things going on at the Waldorf School in Santa Fe. So they had thrown me out when I called them on it. And so simultaneous to all of this, we've been thrown out of their dojo because of their rape. The rapist was everywhere. He was 10, and his brother, who was 8. They were everywhere that my boys were, because they were their best friends. So we got thrown out of our pool club, tennis club, skateboard park, dojo. The whole town went into hate crimes against us. There were messages.
I'm going to interrupt you. That was quite a story. You know, the story I expected was the story about your daughter, who also had previously been taken away. That's an amazing, amazing story. How they put. So the story with you, though, Lydia, is that you and your husband are both targets, and then your entire family, your daughter, who was taken, and now she's trying to kill you, and your 2 sons. The last I heard, they were trying to get Stryker, one of your sons.
We've gone through various names because we have to hide online. They are born with Lakota names, Akichita and Wakia, and people have trouble in English speaking Lakota words. So their birth names are, the oldest is Wakia and the youngest is Akichita. That turned into nicknames early on to Kogi and Kiki. As they hit puberty, that, Kiki is the oldest, that couldn't work. So then we moved to Strider. Strider comes from, he's the youngest. Lord of the Rings is his favorite movie. The hero is Viggo Mortensen. His name is Strider in the film. Dante, I just winged it out because his favorite author is the Count of Monte Cristo. I'm getting, sorry, I'm triggered. So
No, I know you are. Lydia, I want to give
now they
the rest of the panel.
And Strider. So yes, Strider has been exhibiting, and I'm trying to protect their privacy. But in the last month, but it went into an uproar the night after I did my vids with you guys, which is a week ago Friday. First time I've ever gone public. Coming up to my bedroom and telling me he's having homicide. I really don't know if I should say this online because I don't want the police to arrive. I think I should withhold that.
Be careful.
Wanting to do some things, and at this point, doing some things to himself, and struggling. And there is been, to the best of what I can determine, real demonic attacks since the day he arrived in this house, in his bedroom alone. It's nonstop. It's 24/7. I don't know if it's a chip, psychotronics. I don't, because both are real. So it's really hard to tell. But what I did is I began a 4-day fast. When it started at its worst three nights ago, the threat was at its highest. So I go right to my husband's spirituality. That's where I have a discernment, where it's not psychotronic weaponry, where it's occultism. And I, started a 4-day fast. I'm on my 3rd day right now. And I've been asking for the real help, is praying in Lakota. And I sat for 1 hour at one point for 4 hours in his bedroom. The first day I was fasting. He was at school. He's just graduating, straight A student, scholarships everywhere. These boys are wonderful and brilliant. Despite everything they've been through, they're just amazing. And it was incredible what was happening in that bedroom. When I lit the sage and I was playing sacred songs on the computer, the old, his ancestors, and praying in Lakota, asking for them, it was a light show in there. And I'm sure I'll lose people with that, except, Lakota people. But whatever, I've been attacked for everything under the sun, including, looking horrible when I have leukemia. or bloated when I have diabetes. Those pictures aren't online anymore, but they'll probably come back up. She's so ugly.
Yeah.
Guess what, guys? I don't want you. I don't want guys. I want them all happy. I wouldn't know. You know, I always come back with, well, I was never attracted to white men.
I think this is that you're bringing to the party here the spiritual dimension of this whole thing. The reason that they need these children. It's all tied in. And I think the person who was taking Strider had taken a pipe of your husband's, and that gave her some power.
My daughter stole his chanupa. She came under false pretenses this summer. I've been trying to rescue her just since she was 12. She's about to turn 30. 17 years. So she comes under false. I didn't realize I hadn't seen her in 4 years. Just how bad. She's been practicing witchcraft since she was 12. Who gave her her first satanic Bible that all the neighbors saw her sitting in the fields with, that they can all testify, that the same neighbors. We saw Sophia and Lydia. What's going on? Lee held it. So before I know it, she's advanced at 30 witchcraft and now voodoo. I'm not making this up. I saw all her texts while she was in jail. There was an armed robbery. I was in the backseat of our car. I had no idea there was an armed robbery about to go down. This is downtown. She's high on meth. She's out of her mind. 3 men get hospitalized by her. Their faces were destroyed. There was a pool of blood. And I mean, she and her boyfriend beat them to, in the ICU right behind the car. So I didn't know I thought we were going for a drive with my daughter. It would have been the first time since she was 12 that I was having an outing with my child. So long story short, she comes back to get the chanupa and leaves. And the chanupa is the way to say the sacred pipe in Lakota. And I had just discovered in 2005 what was really going on with that sacred pipe. And that's what's been saving us. And I think that the irony is not that some things that happened before she got here under those false pretenses. Mom, I want to come home. I love you. I miss you. I need help. Not according to her texts.
Yeah.
To the voodoo practitioners.
We're going to have to do. I want to do another interview with you about all this stuff.
The amazing thing is, Paul, and I'll just say one more thing, is that even though she'd stolen the chanupa, I had done a ceremony to put it to sleep, but told to me in 2005 by a medicine man in Pine Ridge, put it to sleep. It simply put for anyone that doesn't understand all these things. And it was in Azili Wichoha, it was put to sleep and staying in, a very, cared for corner in my bedroom. And she came back, she was in jail 5 days. My mother, of course, has her bonded out. And she comes flying back here to grab that chanupa and takes off. The thing is, the powers didn't leave with it. And that was quite obvious as she drove out. And I know this may sound crazy, and I have to be really careful because I don't want to offend any Lakota people. So that's one event of attempt to take my boys with the system. And I didn't have to go to court, and I'm so sorry to hear what you've been through. And because when they're trying to get your children or your one child, and that's the heart, the mother. I don't know how any mother survives having her child taken, and I had my first daughter taken, so I never got her back.
I'm sure I'll get it back. But what I want to relate to what you just said about this very annoying tendency to handcuff women and to take them to psychiatrist, social service, or whatever it may be. I had an experience. I was was 2 or 3 years ago. I was negotiating with the head of the Libby Committee in the European Parliament, and the Libby Committee is the committee that deals with civil liberties, justice and home affairs. To get, actually, we had done the scanning in a controlled environment in the Faraday cage with a group of victims and a control group, and we had been able to demonstrate that the victims that had the complaints that were attacked by directed energy weapon, indeed in the Faraday cage in the controlled environment were emitting radio frequencies, and the control group, which was basically some volunteers we took, they had no complaints, and it was absolutely negative, and we couldn't measure anything. Here's the report, you know, of the scanning, and so it's you can also find it online under isaac.org. And anyway, so I was in the middle of negotiating with the president of this committee that we could come with all our experts and basically present these results to them. Because this was scientific proof that these people had been non-consensually experimented on with nanotechnology implants. And I was very short to achieving this, but we were during the end of the year, it was before the Christmas break, and his assistants had told me, okay, let's take up this discussion after Christmas and we'll see if we can organize this hearing, you know, in front of the Libby committee that you asked us to do. And I said, okay, great, Merry Christmas, and we'll talk in January. That was all going fine. Let's say I was very close to achieving that. And on the other hand, I had sent my report, you know, about me personally to the prosecutor in Brussels, but this was 6 weeks prior to what occurred, and had also I said, well, I'll send you here with more evidence for my case. So I explained what these measurements meant. And also I sent some other documentation about various court proceedings, various court cases on the subject that we're currently running, and asked her just to put this further evidence in my file. That was all I did. And this prosecutor is called Sylvie Verstraete, by the way. Yeah? And and I also found that there was conflict of interest because she was also the same prosecutor on my custody case. So, but that I found out later. So, but this was 6 weeks before, and then just the day before Christmas, the last day of office, basically, I was negotiating with the president of the Libby committee to have this hearing, and was very close to achieving that. Well, I had another, because there are often victims coming here to look for refuge. I had one here staying over the Christmas holidays. She's Spanish, but she was living in Canada at the time. And she had asked me that they were attacking her so hard that she was really scared for her life. And she asked me if she could come for the Christmas holidays to me. And she was thinking maybe of settling down in Belgium, because she thought maybe if she's closer to me, there could be more protection. So she was here. And so the day after that, so we had just gone out, it was on the 30th of December, I remember. We had gone out to do some shopping, because on the 31st, there was a New Year's Eve party here, which was basically most attended by victims that have no families to go to and no friends. So we had done quite some shopping. And when we arrived back, there were 3 police officers there, like humming in on us. They separated us, they pushed my friends to the mailboxes, a very strong one, and the other ones took me in the little room in front of the lift, and they were shouting at me, saying, you know, state your name, state your name, state your name. And I was like, what's going on here? And they were like, don't speak, state your name. So at the end, I did, and they immediately handcuffed me. And I said, by order of the prosecutor, we're taking you to immediate psychiatric exam. And I said, but why? You know, on what grounds? And they were like, don't speak. The only thing I want to hear from you is now if you authorize this lady to take the key to your house. I said, well, she's a guest in my house, so she has nowhere where to stay. So of course I authorize her. They shoved me into their car, still handcuffed. And the big police officer, you know, quite strong man, he was driving. I heard him calling, and he said, well, you know, for the deprivation of liberty, where do we take the woman? And they said, well, a university hospital, quite far out, actually. And so I was so taken aback, and they were so so quick to take me that they had taken all of my shopping bags also in the police car. So, you know, it was it was a manu military operation. And so we were driving there, and I was still handcuffed, and I was still trying to find out what was going on. And I said, well, what's this about? And, you know, what about this exam? And he said, well, you know, if you don't stop asking questions, I'm going to inform the prosecutor that you have not complied with his request. And I said, well, sorry, you know, if you come and snatch me in front of my home, and then I think it would be at least normal that I would want to know why, what is going on. And the police officer said, well, I'm just the messenger. I'm just the mailman here. I don't know the file. And so we arrived at the police, and the female police officer, there were 2 men and 1 woman. She was handing me, taking me really strong, holding me very strong, still handcuffed. And the admission procedure took about 15 minutes. And then whilst I was still handcuffed. And then finally a psychiatrist came into the office. And by that time, the big, strong, very not nice police officer to me, well, I'm going to take the handcuffs off, okay? But you have to promise that you're going to be nice and that you're not going to freak out here. Are you going to be nice? And I said, well, of course, you know. So he took the handcuffs off, and then they left the room. And the psychiatrist said to me, well, I'm Dr. van Steenenberg, you know. It was the UZ Brussels, it's a big university hospital. And he said, well, madam, do you know why you're here? And I said, no, not at all. I was hoping that you would give me some explanation. I was, you know, really, the more stress happens, usually I get, the cooler I get. You know? So I was really keeping my cool. I was speaking very slowly. So he said, well, I have received an order by the prosecutor for an admission here in the hospital for you. You know? And I said, well, you know, doctor, I'm very surprised that it's for admission, because I was just told it was for a psychiatric exam, and I wasn't told the reason. So, and he was like, well, yeah, he obviously didn't have very much information either. And he said, well, yeah, that is a bit strange, he said. And then he asked me who I was and to tell me a little bit about my life situation. So I told him that I've worked until a few years for the European Space Agency, that I've now that I've made these tests, that I could prove that I was non-consensually implanted, that I have founded at that time, it was 2 human rights organizations that were doing these tests to prove these crimes scientifically, that were working with several scientists and lawyers and doctors to prove these crimes, and so on. And I saw he was like the more and more I told him this, he was like, you know, backing up a little bit and obviously thinking, well, this woman can't be that crazy. And he said, well, so you've been part of an international study? And I said, yeah, I have indeed. And then he was like, okay, do you have a GP? And I said, yeah, sure, I have a GP. And my GP is totally aware of what I'm doing, and he was aware of the international study I've been organizing and the human rights organization I've been founded. So he knew everything. And he said, well, can I have the number? And I said, yeah, sure, you can call him. And he stepped out to call him, and the 3 police officers came in again. And suddenly, I hadn't told them that my friend was from Canada at all. And suddenly they started talking. Well, the woman said, well, you know, I'm soon going to take a career break, and I'm going to go to Canada with my boyfriend. And they were talking between them. And then he said, the one said, well, yeah, that's interesting, that's good. And so they turned to me and said, well, you know, the lady that is staying into your house, you know, she's from Canada as well, isn't she? She's some kind of nurse or caregiver. So I said to myself, well, how can I know that she's from Canada? You know, I haven't mentioned that to her. And certainly I haven't mentioned that she's a caregiver or some nurse, because she isn't, you know. And I said, well, no, she's Spanish. She's indeed residing in Canada, but she's not a nurse or caregiver. You know? She's just a friend staying into my house. And so they looked at each other and I said, well, we have understood that she was like a nurse taking care of you, you know. And I said, well, you have misunderstood then. Huh? But I said, well, but I don't know if you know the criminologist, Nicolas de Surmont, who has worked with the Brussels police, and he has worked specifically on the the question of targeted individuals, people that are non-consensually experimented on. And he has done very good articles about describing harassment techniques, describing how the victims of these crimes are often not taken seriously and even turned out by the police. He's worked, with some of your colleagues. I don't know if you know this, because otherwise, if you don't know that, it should be very interesting for you to read these articles. To inform you about these crimes and the harassment techniques that they use to destabilize the victim or so. It's very interesting to read. And so they looked at each other and they shut their mouths. They didn't say anything anymore. They looked down. And, so it took a while. And then the psychiatrist came back and said, Madam, I spoke to your GP. I have sent a report to the prosecutor. We now need to wait what happens. What's the decision? And then he said, well, but what I could, the police officers left by then. And he said, but what I could already offer you, if you want to, is you could stay on a voluntary basis here in the hospital for a week or so to relax and calm down and be less anxious. And I said, well, there's no need for it, because I'm not anxious at all and I'm not nervous. So thank you very much for the offer, right? But I decline. I don't want to stay here, and there's no need for it. So because what was the procedure was obviously to offer me this to stay on a voluntary basis, and then they will diagnose you, and then you can't leave anymore. Okay, so I said, no, I'm not interested in that. Thank you very much. And I said, and also I have people coming to my home tomorrow, so they're not going to understand why I'm not there. So, and so he said, oh, you still got contacts, And I said, yeah, of course. So, and then he asked me about my family situation. So I said, I have a son, and he said at the moment on vacation with his father. And so he was like, so you're seeing still your son and the father of your son regularly? I said, yeah, of course, So obviously he had been briefed about something. And anyway, then he went to check if they had gotten the report, and he came back, and the police officers come back in by then. And he said, well, madam, I just got the answer of the prosecutor. You can go. You're free to go. And I saw the police officers looking at each other, looking not very pleased. And one of them, the big one that was really unfriendly, said to the doctor, can I see you 2 minutes in private? And they stepped out to another room. I didn't understand hear exactly what they were saying, but I heard that the doctor said various times, no. So obviously, I think the police officer was trying to make pressure on the doctor to say, well, the prosecutor really wants her to be locked up, but it didn't work. So when we went out, they all escorted me to the door. And when we came in the car, the police officer said that he was, oh, sorry, I have an American victim staying with me. I'll open the door and then I'll continue. I'll try to be quick because I think the end is worth it. Just a second.
Is it all right if I say something?
Sure.
Well, in that documentary, it's a news piece with Sean Stone, and I will get the links to you guys. The CPS worker said the woman will, the healthier and better the mom, the more they will be labeled delusional at the psychiatric attacks. So everything she's describing has already been exposed by this Sean Stone interview and this CPS worker in California, what mothers have gone through across this country. And I'm just explaining, and what was your name again?
Melanie.
Okay, so the CPS worker here did expose that the system has already a model to use with what they will label the mothers, and especially the better the mother, the smarter the mother, the more functional in every way, the harder you'll get labeled delusional.
Yeah,
the psychiatric, everything you've said. And so I'll put the links up. And, I come back to this book again because it's all in here already. Also, I've read so many different books. you know, like right now, this is my reading list. I don't know if you can see it, but I mean, you know, I've got my life is books, and so I really mean this, and I've got the internet, and when it comes to putting the whole thing in one, I've never ever come across a better complete resource. It's big print, small, easy to read, short chapters. This is CIA, agent that went in for knee surgery and never came back out alive after writing this book. I can't tell you guys all how crucial, since of all the other books I've read on the subject of mind control, the conspiracy, the New World Order, psychotronic weaponry, psychiatry, the 1900s, everything that happened in Canada, from Ewan Cameron to, Presidio to Fort Bragg, and to the cults of Satanism in the military, all of this, the psyops to the Western civilization to re-engineer us into robots for transhumanism. So I've never come across a shorter, more easier, is cited. It's their research papers. Everything you're going through, Melanie, is already, it's a chapter already in here, what they will call the mothers, what they will, the psychiatry, the psychology.
Because what is important is that obviously I was prevented to do this hearing at the European Parliament. That was the whole idea. That's why they came and picked me up, but unfortunately for them, it hasn't worked. So I filed a complaint for abuse of power. But when we left, actually, when I was talking to the psychiatrist, he had offered me that I could stay in the hospital, and calm down. And I said, well, no, I declined this offer. But I said, well, I make you a counter offer. It's not the case now. I'm not anxious, or I don't have any psychological problems, but if ever I feel the need to talk to somebody, it might be you, it might be somebody else, then I make you a counter offer. You give me your card, and then I contact you. Maybe that will never happen, because to show him, okay, I'm keeping the control, So right. So when we left, all the police officers and the psychiatrists escorted me to the door. And he gave me his card. So, he said, well, if you ever need, and I said, well, thank you, but I don't think I will, but, you never know what happens in life. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. And the police officer, when we drove in the car, when he said he was just the messenger and he didn't know the file, but he said, well, we'll take you to the psychiatrist, and if the psychiatrist thinks that you're not delusional, or that that you're not crazy and that everything's fine with you, then I would be the most happiest guy in the world. I would be very happy for you. But of course, it was ironical. So when they escorted me to the door, I said to the police, well, can you take me back now to my place? Because I suppose that you're very happy now for me. Huh? Because, obviously, there's no need for me to stay in psychiatry. And you could see that he was really pissed off. And he said, well, no, we have other things to do. We have to go to another place now. So you have to take the taxi. So I had to call the taxi, because I had all these heavy bags with my grocery shopping. It was still there. And I had to, it cost me 30 euros to go, to get home. And when I came back, I found my Spanish-Canadian friend here very, very distraught. And she was like, my God, I wanted to come here to Belgium because I thought it was better than Canada, but I'm definitely not going to come to Belgium because it's much worse than in Canada here, And she was really shocked. I can't believe how something like this can happen. But the bottom line is that I was so close to achieving this hearing, and that would mean a public hearing, in the European Parliament about these crimes, that the prosecutor had to do something. Somebody probably gave her a call and said, well, take this woman out of the circuit because she's getting really dangerous in exposing the truth. Mm-hmm. So the only thing was left was basically, because my letter to her was really not delusional, it was all just to giving her further evidence. That was all, and asking her to put it into my file. So that was the only possibility they had to remove me, basically. And indeed, well, I'm still working on getting the hearing, but there's a new president at the moment now, so I have to rebuild the whole relationship and so on. So the hearing didn't happen. So for me, I mean, the time coincidence is so, how do you say, compelling, that it was clear that it was not because I sent her the evidence of my scanning, you know, it was to basically prevent me from organizing this hearing.
This is going on so out of control in the UK. Have you ever heard of the UK column? Brian Garish and Mike Robinson. The UK column you can find on the internet. Pull it right up right after this show. These are two amazing men that have been covering. They have a great video production, daily news. A great emphasis is put on not just. I mean, they are more professional than CNN. It really.
Yeah, I think I have a problem with them.
Well, I know they support Kevin.
They dropped. Well, that's one thing. Kevin and Matt, and then they dropped Hampstead cover-up like a hot potato. So, you know, I'd warn you against those two guys, Gary.
Can you just, Paul, can you just say it again, because the audio just dropped out for me. What was your problem with the UK column?
The UK column, I thought that was really great because he was covering the Hampstead cover-up. And we were trying to get some information out on that. I don't really know that story, but a woman's children were in a satanic cult at school that was run by the father. And when it came out that these children were ritually abused, of course the courts took the children away and gave it to the father, who was the satanic guy. And we couldn't get any traction at all. I think myself, Jaronism, Alfred Lambermont Weber, they covered it, and Brian Garish did. And then Brian dropped them.
Of Alfred Weber, because he published a book in 1974 that is impossible to find online now. Too bad I didn't screenshot it back then, about the Luciferian New World Order. That, you know, that guy, you know. Yeah,
I don't know about Alfred. No, he's Yale, strike one.
Oh well,
the Carter administration. You know, you have to not trust anybody. Anyway, I want to interrupt here. There's incredible stories, and I'm sure Millicent has had the same situation with her children. I mean, not that it's redundant, because it certainly isn't redundant. These are incredible. But what we've been trying to do with these forums is we've been trying to package them as not just here's what's happening, but here's what we're doing about it. And I know during the week, Millicent and Katherine and Karen and Ramola's writing feverishly, trying to get what's going to probably become a book on Millicent.
It's pretty long at this point.
That's right. So I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about what we're doing. It was interesting to know that Millicent already has a group up there in Belgium that I think is the belly of the beast. I mean, you've got it's probably the pedophile capital. I know it's the UN capital. It's the Muslim capital of Europe, Raqqa. I think it's really the belly of the beast. But why don't we move on to how the tsunami campaigns are doing and what other things we're moving forward on here?
Yeah, I think, you know, what's very interesting is because I guess there are a couple of things I would like to say about the court system and all the you know, the actual testimonies that we've heard so far. One of the striking aspects is that a lot of the offenses actually repeat. So, for example, the police just seems to have one template for how to deal with people. And if you think about solutions, at first it's for every individual who goes up against the system, be that the court system or the police. It's very, well, it's intimidating. But then once you know what they will throw at you, you can guard yourself against that. And I think this is the most important thing. So the first step, I mean, most people, when they try to report microwave attacks, for example, or remote neural monitoring, they would go to the police themselves first. So what I did to try to help people, I put out an info pack on my website. I just would like to mention that because everybody has got the same thing. And I had run-ins with the police as well. So I was in London and I was trying to report a brutal microwave attack on me in the hotel room. And when I went to the police station, I was not even allowed to talk to a police officer, but instead, they just immediately called a mental health ambulance. I didn't even know these things existed, but they just forced it onto me. But I actually filmed the entire interaction so people can see online what it looks like when these, these Muppets pull the show for you, But what is important to realize is that the first time you're up against that, the idea is that you will be intimidated. That's the same with the court system, by the way. The name of the game is intimidation. You're meant to be scared, you're meant to be cowed. And if you know what you're preparing for, you can fight back. So the first thing I would say in all of this is you never ever, every victim, the first thing you should buy yourself is what's called a dictaphone, an audio recorder. Just an audio, no camera, because audio has got hours and hours of storage space, And when you talk to the police, you have to turn that on. You take this audio recorder, you either put it in your jacket pocket or into your handbag, and you record every word when you're talking to the police. Because at this moment in time, sadly, some police officers are not your friends. Then given that today we're talking about court cases as well and court corruption, I experienced myself that when I went to the High Court trying to get an emergency injunction against British intelligence for my targeting, that MI5 obviously also controls the security at the Royal High Courts in London, and they modified the transcript. And at first, I went there and I was not prepared for it. I was not prepared for this level of corruption. So I had 2 hearings, and after the second hearing, when I ordered the transcripts, I realized, hang on, an entire question by the judge, and my answer was scrubbed. So the third hearing, I actually went and I recorded covertly the entire court hearing, and I can prove that the transcript, which somebody obtained before I could actually pay for it, they also modified certain keywords. They modified it such it was ironic because I was reading out the text and it mentioned targeting in the US, and they edited that out. That was very interesting. So I can prove now that this is what they did. So when you're dealing with the court system, especially with intelligence people, they are saboteurs. They're going to subvert everything. So just to say that if people want to approach the police, which I think they have to at some point, just to get a case file, have a look at my website, stop007.org. If you go to info, FAQ and info pack, there's a little description of what I think you should do before you go to the police, that you should, for example, take a dictaphone and some tips. And then there's a second document that's called the bullshit tango, which is what you will be put through when you're at the police. They will try to sidetrack you nonstop. And I think it's important, to listen to these stories and then in your mind, make yourself a kind of a diagram of what is the nonsense they will throw at you, because it will always be the same. The sectioning, well, then you can take evidence, they can't section you when you've got evidence. Take a dictaphone, and I guess at all times just stay as calm as possible because they are trying to disconcert you. I think this is the most important thing.
Yeah, correct. I had the case that actually fortunately I had a witness. So always take a witness with you. Never go alone to the police. My house has been vandalized a lot of times. There have been cut out pyramid-shaped forms out of my wooden pocket. They have, ripped my clothes to pieces or stolen my clothes, even underwear they like. It's unbelievable. As soon as I go out, when I come back, I wonder, well, what's going to be vandalized this time? And the same with my car. So after I had a meeting at one point. I had filed a complaint a lot of times with the police, and they were never doing anything. And on the contrary, they were making fun of me. laughing or trying to discredit me. And at one point, I really had enough, and I called the mayor's office and I asked him for a meeting. I took 2 witnesses about these subjects, and I said, well, I esteem that the police is totally inefficient, not efficient, and worse, they're actually not taking me seriously. So so we went to this meeting, and the mayor had asked the Brussels chief of police to be there because I was basically, you know, complaining about the police. And so we had this meeting, and I had made photos of all of the vandalisms that had been done to my house, and I showed this to the mayor, and I said, see, this is what I'm talking about. And he looked at the photos, and he looked at the chief of the police, but he said, but this is vandalism. Chief, what can we do about this? And he was like, it's called Eddie van der Kerkhoven, by the way. And he was like, well, you know, the file is very complicated. I mean, madam knows it well. And I said, what are you talking about? What do I know well? And, you know, and he said, well, I can't talk about, you know, about it in front of these people. These were my witnesses. And I said, oh, you mean my friends here? We can speak openly. They know everything, and you can speak openly about them. And he said, well, you know, you complained that you were non-consensually implanted, that has been sent to the social defense. In fact, the social defense department at court is for cases that are either considered a danger to themselves or to society. And you know, and so what? And I said, well, you know. I have scientific evidence, so it should not go to the social defense at all. But nevertheless, leaving apart the non-consensual implantation, we're talking here about non-consensual, how do you say, illegal entries into my home with acts of vandalism and theft. So that's why I'm asking you. That's why I'm asking you to intervene. I'm not asking you to do anything about the non-consensual experimentation. I'm asking you about, you know, about the theft and the vandalism, to do something about it. And the mayor was like, well, madam, you did it right. Every time this happens to you, every time they come into your apartment, they steal something, they vandalize something, you come here like you did, and you file a complaint. And then the chief was like, and I said, well, maybe I could even come to the chief, you know. And he's like, yeah, sure, in front of the mayor, very nice. Here's my card. You can come and complain with me, and you know, I'll file a complaint, no problem. Next time this happened, I went to, and I was waiting for him, and he let me there wait for 2 hours with a witness, and then told me, or let the other police officers tell me that he had no time to see me today. So, but they had told me during the mayor's office that I should, every time this happens, and that when my wooden pocket was totally destroyed, I should ask a police car to come and make notes of all the vandalism, all the acts of vandalism that had been done. And I did this. Unfortunately, I had a friend here staying. When 2 police officers came, they made photos, they made a report about everything that has been destroyed here, and they said that I would get a copy in a week, not longer than a week it should take, that I could then send to my insurance, you know. So I said fine, but I never received this copy. So after a few weeks, I requested several times for the copy, and yeah, it's gonna come. I never got it, so I went with a friend to the police, and I asked her, the police officer I was usually dealing with, and I said, well, on this day I had a police car coming to my place that all took note of all the damage that has been done to my flat, and I would like to have the copy because I need to send it to my insurance. And she looked in it and she said, well, I'm sorry, I have no trace of a police car here at your place, and there's nothing at all. Wow. And fortunately, I was my friend, and she said, well, actually that day I was with Melanie at her place, and there were 2 police officers that took down all the damage had been done. So I'm a witness to that these police officers were there. And she was like, oh, I'm confused. I don't find any trace. It's very strange. So are you sure? You know, I was like basically saying, well, are you not delusional? Because, and I said, oh yeah, I'm damn sure. And my friend, as you just heard, is a witness. So yes. So what I did, I said, okay, now I really have enough. And well, she said that they were looking with the chief to find this evidence, that this report. And I've asked again, and they said that there was nothing. They didn't find anything. So at that point, I had really enough. I wrote a letter to the mayor, saying, okay, after our meeting, this was happened. As you gave me the advice, I had a police car coming to take down note of all the damage that had been done. I had a witness that day that there were 2 police officers that took down that wrote a report. And she made a declaration on her honor as well, saying that day I was at Melanie's house and there were indeed 2 police officers, a man and a woman, that came and took note of all the damage. And they said that in a week's time she should have the copy, so she could then send that to her insurance. I sent this to the mayor and I said, could you please explain? You know? And he wrote back to me, and isn't it funny that he immediately finds back the police report, you know, and he said, well, this has been done all, you know, according to how it should be done, and it's already been sent to the prosecutor's office, and here the file is closed, but it has been done. And he gave me the number of the report. So I wrote to the prosecutor and I said, well, you know, I need this report for my insurance. Do you give me the authorization to consult my file at the prosecutor's office and to take copies of this report? And I got quite quickly the reply back saying, yeah, no problem. From then to then, you can go and take whatever copy you like. So when I went there, I found this report, of course, of the report of the damage that had been done to my flat, but I found also various police reports that I had filed that were done totally correctly. I mean, you know, that were just my declarations, and that the chief of police later went, and I have the proof, that he changed basically the reference to something that means harassment to basically a person mentally ill. But I mean, he has signed this and there is his stamp on it. So I can prove, because of both versions, that he went afterwards and changed basically, you know, he made himself a psychiatrist and decided that I was a mentally ill person, and that was sent to the prosecutor. So that's probably the reason why it went to the Social Defense Department, you know, because of his changes he made. So, yeah, so I took copies of everything. Not only the copy of the report where they note down the damages to my flat, but also various copies of where I had a copy when it was, you know, done in a regular way, where I could prove that he changed the documents afterwards, you know. So I have all this as proof. So that's so far for corruption.
Katherine, doesn't it kind of sound like the report you got when you called my chief of police?
Sorry?
I was asking Katherine if that doesn't sound kind of like the report she got when she called the chief of police on my behalf. He told her that my complaint was unfounded.
Yeah, absolutely. It's basically police officers just plainly lying. And that's basically it. Yeah. So we are currently in a situation where police officers are lying just nonstop. Also, I think judges are lying. I mean, in my court case, another thing that was very interesting, I just want to put in this one nugget so that people just, you know, have their feelers out. Because in my court case, and you can read it in the transcripts, they made reference to another court case, I made it, which was Philip Kerr versus MI5. And the lawyers for MI5 were lying. You know, I'm sure in court, I shouldn't say lying, they were lying, but they were kind of legally lying in a legally lie way. So what they did is, imagine there's one guy called Philip Kerr who's been harassed by MI5 for, I think by now, 14 years, okay? They did to him exactly the same stuff they do to us, you know, kind of comment on his private life, you know, destroy everything that he loves, destroy everything that his partner loves, and many, many more things, including drugging him, kidnapping him, and many other things. And then I have gone to the court case. I've even spoken to Philip Kerr personally. And then when I am standing representing myself in court, the lawyers in their skeleton argument referred to the Philip Kerr case and said, well, Philip Kerr went to the High Court. This guy's a businessman, right? A businessman went to the High Court because he was upset. He claimed that MI5 had put an odd sock into a sports bag and that they moved his sofa inter alia. And that was the thing in the skeleton arguments. And I just want to say, no businessman on the planet will take British intelligence to court in the High Court because he found an odd sock in his sports bag and because they moved his sofa. right? But what these guys did, the lawyers for MI5, I think this was Miss Aaron. I think Miss Aaron should be on our radar because, you know, she represented MI5 for Philip Kerr and also for me. And Mr. Green was there for my case. Now, Mr. Green and Miss Aaron compiled this case. Miss Aaron even represented MI5 against Philip Kerr, so she knew the full case. She knew that he was kidnapped or claimed to have been kidnapped, drugged, and harassed and almost killed, you know, for 13 years. And then she's got the gall to put that in writing. So we have not just corrupt police officers, we've got corrupt judges, and we've got also, you know, corrupt attorneys, either for the other party who will lie through their teeth. You know, and the only thing why it's not technically lying, it's because they put in the word inter alia, which in Latin means amongst others. Okay, but it's clearly to mislead the court. It was to mislead the court. So, and then of course, one thing I want to warn people of is that your own attorney or barrister might be lying too, because they also might have been bought by MI5. So when people are daunted to represent themselves in court, the upside is that at least you won't be lying about your own case, you know.
Should we be collecting names of these corrupt judges? Would the list just get?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean,
Yeah.
You have to.
Oh, sorry, actually, forgive me. Can I make one announcement, which is, now that we're talking about courts, before I forget, I wanted to make an announcement, a public announcement, which is exactly what you said, Paul. I want to put out a call for victim testimonies and for blacklists from victims. And the blacklist is exactly what you talked about, Paul. I think every single victim comes up against so many corrupt people. It's almost like you're stress testing the system when you're going through. You know, you're kind of like, it's like debugging a software program. You find all the bugs, you know? And what the victim should do is when these corrupt things happen to you, make a blacklist. So I invite that from people. Please send that to contact@stop007. Send me your blacklists, which will be the names of the people who've wronged you or have been very corrupt. And then in bullet points, you know, full sentences say how they've been corrupt. Because this is extremely valuable information. We can only recapture the system if you remove these corrupt people. So last time we outed what I think are corrupt police officers who refused to help, you know, Millicent. And also we outed corrupt heads of intelligence. And we will continue. And there are also judges who, for example, Judge Horgate, who threw out my case. I asked for time extension because I was sabotaged and mauled by the respondents, and he just said no. Well, I think that's a corrupt thing to do. I even told him I survived an assassination attempt, and he was not willing to give me a time extension. You know, so corrupt judges exist, and we need to, and I think the only way to fight the system is to take down their names and what they've done, and keep a public record of them forever, almost like a Wikipedia of corruption. You know, and sorry, just to finish off, because this is important. You know, when we hear all these victim testimonies, you know, the one from Lydia and the one from Melanie, there's so many things done to people, but there are elements that are the same. And once you have many victim testimonies, all independent women or independent people, men, women, children, from across the globe, all saying the same stuff without knowing each other, that can be used to actually cross-reference and prove that the technology has been used, even if you don't have the patents. So, for example, Karen, Karen, Ramola, and myself, all of us have experienced being shot at so hard that we can hear the electromagnetic pulses bounce off shielding, all of us. Now, I would have to look around for the technology that actually makes that, but just because all of us independently, without knowing each other, have observed this, that's already enough to prove that something like that exists. And when we've got many victim testimonies, we can cross-correlate.
And Katherine, just to add to that, I think what we are doing right now is supremely powerful. I mean, just listening to Lydia's story and listening to Melanie's story, and last week, we all listened to Millicent's story a little bit. Just to say those stories out loud, to be on camera like this, to have other people watching, I think that's in itself supremely powerful, because what we're doing here is we are documenting. We are documenting 21st century crimes against all of us. And I think before we call ourselves victims, we are people. We are just normal people living normal everyday lives. And we have suddenly come under the radar of a criminal system that is seeking to victimize us and seeking to target and seeking to remove people from the system, you know, and we are the people whom they are making attempts at to remove us, to remove our voices. And so we need more and more forums, you know, to speak out and to put our voices out there. And actually, I just wanted to take a minute to say, I know some of you know this already, I want to start a podcast just to document 21st century crimes, as you know, we talked about earlier, Paul. So I want to do something that just takes testimonials like this. Candid conversations on covert crime, just one-on-one, we have conversations, we put it on camera, and we develop a compendium. This is going to be a 21st century documentation archive to show the world that this is happening, how it's happening, and how the people who are supposedly in power and supposedly in authority are incredibly misusing their power and abusing their authority to victimize people. And, you know, to make it a video testimony, a video archive for all time. So I'm going to work with one other person, Ahmed Anani, whom some of you know, and hopefully, I hope will join us at some point on this forum. So far, the only man in our midst who's stood up, along with Paul Marco, stood up to say, you know, we'll join the joint investigation team. We'll stand up for these people whose voices are not being heard. So I'm very happy about that. And, you know, hopefully I'll launch that soon. So I invite anybody here and anyone watching to contact me if they want to have their story heard, if they're ready for their story to be publicized, if they're willing to take that step.
Yeah, I think the one important point we also discussed, and I mean, correct me if you want to do something else, but I think we also suggested that people make these, you know, the interview under oath, so that you do it under oath in the beginning, because then it can also be used in court. You've got a witness or two witnesses, it is under oath, it is documented, and what you're also signaling is that you would be willing to repeat that in court under oath. And that's the most important thing, because then people can refer to it, you know?
Yes, I think that's a brilliant idea. And I've talked to a few people whom I want to interview, and I did say that's one of the things that I'd like to ask them right at the outset, you know. So in order to make sure that we are indeed presenting the testimony of people who've actually experienced what they're talking about, you know, that they can stand up and say, yes, this is my truth. This is the truth of my experience, and I want to publish it, you know. So yes, absolutely. So the under oath thing, to get them to put their hands on something and say, this is, you know, whatever, I swear on my own Holy Bible or my own, whatever is their particular religion, I swear on whatever I hold dear in my religion. I think that's a step beyond it, and I guess I'll have to find a way to do that in a way that's comfortable for people.
I think it's actually, I made videos, testimony videos myself, which I put out on YouTube, because also the other thing is, and it's a very practical point, is that I was, you know, I received several assassination attempts, and I am, you know, they keep going, and they are trying to kill us. And if we just make a testimony under oath, should something happen to us, that can also be used in court.
A dying declaration.
Oh, but that's right, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. So
And
I think that's important.
I guess the only thing I wanted to add to that is, because my experience with trying to prepare stuff for court cases is that we really, you know, the filmed interview is very powerful, and that is, I think, the, you know, the what we can also put into YouTube, because also people resonate with it and take the courage to come forward. So it has this amplification effect. The other thing I want to say, which is a parallel to that, so in parallel, the people who are not comfortable to go on video, but also the people who have submitted a video testimony, I asked them to write up their own victim testimonies in writing, because most courts take written documents. And I'm just preparing a template, and I'm asking people for two versions. You can submit either or both. One of them is your personal testimony that you are going to use for your court, but also maybe you are comfortable for someone else to use in court, only to be given to court cases and lawyers. And then a second version of your testimony, which, if you're comfortable, to publish it online. so that people can see just what what is happening to us, and so that people can download that testimony and use it themselves. So maybe to support their case for police and so on. But there will be a template in the info pack that people can download, and if they want to take part, then I think it would be great. But I really encourage everybody to take the courage and join Ramola's interviews and make essentially bear witness to these crimes against humanity for posterity.
That's it exactly. It's bearing witness. We are here to bear witness.
I also think that it does the targets a lot of good. It's like an off-gassing process. Finally, you laid it on, I've come clean, and I think it's really, I don't know, people that I've interviewed, I think, feel better after getting it out because it's pent up. This thing has been going on, and they've been persecuted for all this time, and
yes.
we've just listened to mothers losing their children. This needs to be heard. They need to get it off their chest so they can be more rational about it, because they know that, yeah, someone's listened to it and they told me I'm not crazy, and I know I'm not crazy. I think it does everybody a lot of good.
Yes, and it also allows people to connect to larger society, beyond this claustrophobic evil criminality that we are being faced with corrupt police, corrupt court system, corrupt prosecutors, people who are essentially running conspiracies against innocent people. So it allows that story to go out to the wider audience of, sane or normal people like the rest of us. And we are able to make connections beyond the matrix that's trying to strangle us.
Yeah, I think that what's happening with this forum and a lot of other things that's going on, this is coming public. They can't deny it anymore. They can't say, well, we don't have those kind of weapons. So
right.
We can't do it anymore. I mean, look at this panel we've got. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 credible people that are all targeted, all speaking eloquently, some with advanced degrees, approaching this in a very systematic way. This isn't a lunatic panel by any stretch of the imagination. And each of you give every one of you more credibility. It's a beautiful thing to watch. Listen, here's what's happening. We're coming up on our 2 hours. I don't know whether they'll shut us down or not, but we're just started kicking, I think. If you want to continue, we can continue as long as you like, or we can sign off and call it a wrap, whatever you'd like to do.
Well, I soon have to go, so.
Yes, me too.
Can't do an all-day podcast. Okay.
Paul, I do have a really important story about police corruption that would add so much to it next time. It also is part of my personal story. It's a big one, so I really want to share that.
Why don't we for another podcast?
So we call it a wrap and continue this on another podcast.
That's true. And maybe Romola wants to interview Lydia again. We did a good one.
Yes, absolutely. I would love to, Lydia. I would love to do a one-on-one with you and also with you, Melanie, to really record both your conversations. And, Millicent already knows I want her. And actually, I do want Katherine and Karen too. So, I just want to cover all our bases here. But yes, at some point. And, we can continue this particular conversation on police corruption and court corruption next time, too, because there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't
seems
told
to always
half
go
of
back
it,
to
what
police.
actually happens yet.
Things always go back to police. That's why they call it police state.
Yeah.
I guess.
They have to be corrupt. Okay, well, we're going to, does anyone want to say anything before we sign off here?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you to you too.
Yeah, thank you for doing it.
Paul, before we sign off, I do want to just share quickly. I have my own story about the court system, not for my children, but with my mother. Was involved in a conservatorship case. And in spite of me providing the lawyers with real medical evidence that my sister-in-law had not been making medical decisions in my mother's best interest. Not one page of it got introduced to the court. And my sister-in-law and my brother ended up keeping my mother. And that was a real harried situation because my mother's life was at stake.
I really wanted you to chime in on that because I know you've had difficulty with that too. Maybe Karen has too. I'm not sure what Karen's
I've got some stories.
Maybe
So
we
for
should
another time.
Yeah.
next time, and we start off with Karen and Melissa telling their stories about their entanglement with this web of nasties.
Web of corruption.
That's right. Well, thank you very much. It's been really been a pleasure talking to you, and we're going to sign off.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Nice
Thank
to meet
you.
all of you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Right.
Just do stop broadcast and everybody will stay on.